Hey everyone, welcome to Speak English with Max and Anna, your cozy place to learn English. I'm Max.
And I'm Anna.
Anna, can I ask you something personal? When was the last time you did something that actually scared you? Even a little.
Good question. Probably about a month ago. I signed up for a pottery class on my own. I walked in and didn't know a single person there. Honestly, I almost quit twice.
But you stuck it out until the end?
Yes, I did. And by the end of the class, I felt way more confident than I expected. The fear in my head was so much scarier than the reality. That's what surprised me the most. And that's exactly today's topic. We're going to talk about why leaving our comfort zone feels so scary, and how familiar habits can quietly hold us back instead of helping us grow.
Let's start right there. Today's episode is for people who already understand English pretty well, but still feel scared to actually speak it out loud. You watch shows, read articles, and follow podcasts like ours with no problem. But the moment a real person talks to you in English, you freeze.
So painfully familiar. Picture this. You're at a hotel, and the receptionist asks you a simple question. You understood every single word, but instead of a real answer, you just smile awkwardly and nod. You mumble a quiet yes, nothing more. Or a similar moment in a shop or a taxi. The clerk or the driver asks something simple. You get the meaning in a second, but all that comes out is a short yes or okay, not the full thought in your head. That happens because just listening feels safe and familiar. Nobody judges silence, but speaking up means showing people your accent, your pauses, your possible mistakes.
Let's figure out why our brain reacts exactly like that. Is it really about English at all?
Not at all. It's really basic psychology. Our brain loves routine. Everything familiar feels safe to it, and safety means less risk. So the brain fights hard to avoid anything new, even something as small as an unfamiliar phrase in another language. That's why trying to speak a new language can scare us more than it should. In that moment, the brain isn't thinking about growth. It's only thinking about staying calm.
So this fear has a purely psychological cause?
Exactly. And there's a second problem. Our imagination loves painting dark scenarios before anything even happens. What if I say something stupid? What if people laugh at me? What if I look ridiculous? But in reality, almost none of these fears ever come true. Other people are usually way too busy with their own thoughts. They really couldn't care less about your grammar. They have their own stuff going on.
I know that feeling all too well. Actually, I had a very similar story. Let me share something personal. Before I moved to the States, I lived in France for a while. In my first year there, I was terrified of making phone calls in English. Writing a text was easy. I had time to think, double-check, look something up. But in a live conversation, everything happens instantly, with no room to think it over.
So relatable. A lot of my students say the exact same thing. They're brave in texting, but panic the moment they have to call someone.
Exactly. And here's the interesting part. That fear didn't just disappear on its own. It only faded once I started calling regularly, making mistakes, and calling again. Each new conversation got just a little bit easier.
So, what can you actually do about it? The first step is lowering the bar and starting small. Don't set a goal to deliver a perfect 10-minute speech right away. Try saying just one short phrase. Order your coffee in English. Reply to a message with a full sentence instead of a plain okay. Small steps don't scare the brain, which is exactly why they work so well. One phrase today can turn into a short conversation next week. And a short conversation becomes a real habit within a month.
There's a second important point, too. Stop comparing your beginning to someone else's middle.
That's such a common trap. You hear someone speaking fluently and think, I'll never be able to talk like that. But you're comparing your first attempts to years of someone else's daily practice. Everyone who speaks fluently now once sounded exactly like you do today. Nobody is born an expert, not even the people you admire so much right now.
Well said.
A third point that people rarely mention. A bad conversation is not a failure. Even if you weren't understood the first time, you still gave your brain real practice. Next time, the right words will come to mind much faster. And a fourth point, just as important, who's around you really matters. If you have someone to practice with, the barrier disappears much faster. No fear of judgment holding you back. It doesn't have to be a native speaker. Anyone learning the language works just fine.
All good points.
And finally, one last thought, maybe the most important one. Confidence doesn't come before you speak. It comes because you started speaking. There's no point waiting for the moment you'll feel 100% ready. Readiness only shows up once you're already taking action, never before it.
Makes total sense.
So here's the takeaway from today. Take small steps. Stop comparing yourself to others and look for support. Let confidence follow your actions, not the other way around.
Real personal growth always starts right where comfort ends. And it doesn't matter what we're talking about. A pottery class, a new job, or your very first sentence in a foreign language.
Before we move to today's segment, we have a question for you. What's one small step with your English you're ready to take this week? Leave it in the comments. We genuinely love to read your answers.
In our next episode, we'll talk about choices. We'll explore why our relationship with ourselves shapes so much of our life, and which small steps can actually help.
And now, it's time for our notebook segment. Like in a notebook, let's jot down 3 keywords straight from today's conversation.
First word, comfort zone. Anna, what do you think? Is that more of a physical place or an inner state?
Definitely a state. It's that feeling when everything around you is familiar, clear, and predictable. For example, staying in your comfort zone feels safe, but it doesn't help you grow. That's exactly what we've been repeating this whole episode. Comfort itself isn't the enemy. The real danger is getting stuck there forever.
Second word, confidence. We found out today that it only comes through practice.
Exactly right. Let's remember this sentence. Confidence comes from taking small steps, not from waiting. The more real action you take, the faster your confidence builds. And that's really the whole point. Action first, confidence after.
And our last word for today, progress. We already said the goal should be progress, not some abstract idea of perfect.
Absolutely right. Let's put it into practice. I'm making progress with my English every single week. That mindset is so much kinder to yourself. Progress is your real result after every single step out of your comfort zone.
Let's go over today's words one more time. Comfort zone, confidence, progress. Try to use at least one of them today.
If this episode was helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next conversations.
Thanks so much for spending this time with us.
See you very soon in the next episode.